go run am oh. This year.
You're welcome back, and the program is still Breakfast Fiesta on Oluyole 98.5 FM.
And we have in the house, of course, a doctor.
Yes.
Don't forget, the focus is child education and corporal punishment, and we have got an authority in that field to discuss that with us.
Exactly.
And he is none other than Dr. Temitope Adeleye, was a counseling psychologist, a lecturer in the Department of Counseling and Human Development Studies, University of Ibadan.
You're welcome on board Breakfast Fiesta, sir.
It's a privilege.
All right, so before we came back on board, while that music was on, we were having a sort of discussion here, and somebody was confessing how tough he was as a kid. That but for corporal punishment, it wouldn't have turned out this good. Monsieur, a confession?
Yeah, it's
all right then.
That's right.
So maybe what we do not understand really is what that corporal punishment is. Or is it all forms of punishment given to a child? What is it? And what distincts it from other means of helping a child grow?
Yeah, thank you very much. Essentially, when you talk about punishments, you, in a very technical way, you say you introduce something aversive, something not pleasant. So, for us, child now, let's talk about a child. You introduce something not pleasant to a child so as to decrease or stop an unpleasant behavior in a very technical way. So when you say you want to punish somebody, the assumption is that that person did something which we call misbehavior. You don't want a repeat of that behavior, so you introduce something unpleasant to that child. So the type of punishment we'll now be talking about, what do you introduce?
All right.
I guess that's what you're driving at. But so when you say corporal punishments, corporal coming from a root word Latin, corpus, body. So if you say body, that means corporal punishment is something that you introduce to inflict pain on the body so that the particular behavior you are not interested in does not repeat itself. So that's corporal punishment.
Okay. So meaning a kind of pain inflicted on the body to serve as deterrent,
yes,
for misbehavior.
Yes.
Isn't that good?
No, it's good to, one, let's start from saying, is misbehavior good? No, that's what I'm driving at.
Yes.
Okay. So when you now introduce something to stop that behavior, and it's also inflicting pains on the child, is that good? Do you understand what I'm trying to look at?
I got you.
It's not good that a child is misbehaving. But the logic is that should you use what is also not good to correct what is not good?
So what you're saying is that two wrongs cannot make a right.
Absolutely.
But then when we look at this wise saying, you know, from the scriptures, when you spare the rod, you spoil the child. Where do we place that?
You see, this topic we are dealing with is a very sensitive, of course very important, very sensitive, and of course very divisive, in the sense that you have people on the different side of it. And the major reason why we have a lot of issues with corporal punishment is because it has roots in some socio-cultural background, including the religious aspect of it, including, you know, similar past experiences, maybe like your own, that looks like it's very productive and very effective. And because of that, it's very difficult to address the issue of corporal punishment. For example, if somebody believes in the Bible and it says that spare the rod
and spoil the child.
And spoil the child. So it looks like that gives the license to use rod and whatever level or intensity to correct misbehavior. You see, the challenge there is very subtle. The issue there is very subtle.
Okay.
There is something they call discipline, and there's another thing called punishment. Punishment is easy. Anybody can do that. It does not really talk about responsibility as it were. It's something default. It doesn't take much of you. Somebody is talking and you don't like what he's saying, just give a slap. Thoughtlessly. I mean, no serious efforts. But when you talk about discipline, discipline is what is expected for a child. But discipline is not cheap. So because discipline is not cheap, most people resort to punishment, which is cheap. Just like saying talk is cheap.
Okay.
You understand? Action is another level. In the same way, when you talk about discipline, what a child needs is discipline. Not necessarily, as it were,
punishment.
All these corporal punishments.
Okay. But can there be discipline without punishment?
Absolutely, absolutely. There could be discipline without punishment. The way I can come in is, let's look at it this way. Discipline, if you look at it from the perspective of maybe the approach, discipline is proactive. And one easy way to look at it is saying, break the word down a little, say discipline. Setting something in line. Making someone to conform. That's actually
to a standard.
Towards a standard.
Okay, let me hold the thought there. And we want to take this commercial break, and when we right back, we'll continue right from there.
Okay.
Ohun èlò tuntun kan ti wà fún sísè àwọn oúnjẹ aládùn. Ṣé lóòótọ́? Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni, Tasty chicken flavour ni o, tí wọ́n ṣe pẹ̀lú àwọn èròjà àbáláyé láti sọ gbogbo oúnjẹ tá a sè dàjẹ́ pọ́nnu lá. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni, Tasty chicken flavour á fàdùn ara máa ń da sóúnjẹ. Mo ti gba ti Tasty chicken flavour lẹ́sẹ̀kẹsẹ̀. Tó bá jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀, má jáfara o, sáré lọ ra Tasty chicken flavour tiẹ̀ lónìí láti máa jẹ̀gbádùn oúnjẹ àjẹpọ́nnu lá. Tasty Cubes chicken flavour ó ń fún wa lóúnjẹ tó gbádùn. Tasty Cubes chicken flavour ó wà lọ́lọ́gọ́rùn-ún gíráàmù, ọlọ́gọ́rùn-ún mẹ́rin gíráàmù àti ọlọ́gọ́rùn-ún mẹ́fà gíráàmù. Ó tún wà níyẹ̀ fún.
You're welcome back, and it's still Breakfast Fiesta on Oluyole 98.5 FM, where we are looking at child education and corporal punishment. Before the break, our guest, Dr. Temitope Adile, was telling us or enlightening us on the difference between punishment, punishing our children, and adopting disciplines. And he also said that discipline is proactive. Now, expatiate on that.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to explain. You see, when you say something is reactive, if you look at punishment, the way we define it earlier, we said that there's a misbehavior.
Yes.
So the starting point is the perception of that misbehavior. It's occurring already. Do you understand? So based on what you've seen, you react. Do you understand? And sometimes, if you see it from that angle, maybe punishments sometimes could be coming late. This is what I'm trying to describe. When you say something is reactive, it suggests that even the child may not have any clear standard. The child may not really know the standard of behavior that is desirable. No effort is given to that, to put the child and say, this is the way you should go. And so, naturally, by default, the child does what is convenient or what it desires. And so once he is now wrong, you quickly come around, you meet the punishment in terms of rehabs. But when you talk about discipline on the other side is that you are very intentional about what your child should do or not do. And you have a focus for the child in terms of instruction, in terms of guidance, in terms of rules, in terms of regulations that you are putting out to the child in form of teaching, in form of training. That's discipline. You know, the whole idea about most of the people that taught us in school, they say, I'll discipline you today. And discipline you today means I'll bring in and start beating you and all the like. You see, it looks so simple, but the effect on us is beyond the child. The child is affected negatively, of course, and the society will also reaping it. You see, if somebody is doing what is wrong, and the only way, of course the easiest way, the only way for some is to punish that child. And punishment in the sense that I am superior to you, I have power, so I inflict pain on you. And the child doesn't like it, does not like it, but just admits you have a superior power. So in any setting, you are normalizing violence. As simple as that, you are normalizing, how do I pray, violence. I'm looking for another word, aggression. That if there's now something the child is also displeased with, and the child perceives that I have superior power over this person, he also inflicts pains. Do you understand? But the essence of education is an holistic development of a child. It's not just for you to learn 2 + 2 = 4. That's part of it. A child's education should involve his social interaction, his emotional regulation. You know, he should be able to regulate his emotions. He should be able to relate with others. But all in the form of education, these are not being molded. What is being molded is to say, you have force, use it. And that is why you see most of the time, for instance in primary school, this same corporal punishment is seen in primary school. Do you notice that?
Oh, yes.
And most of the time the children just like take it. Get to secondary schools today, the children, so to say, are resisting it. Do you understand? Teacher beats, inflicts cane on a child, the child collects it, beats the teacher back. Because he has the perception that your force is not greater than my own. And the reason why I've been taking all this nonsense before is because I know if I respond or react, you will overpower me. Fathers beat their children, and the children take it with anger, with all manners of things, and don't resist. Once they enter the teenage years, they have the perception you are big and big. Why? He has realized that if I don't want to put myself in continuous trouble, let me agree. Not agree in principle with what you're doing. It's just like a defeatist kind of mindset that I cannot push it further, so he keeps quiet. But now somebody is growing, he sees himself like an adult. His muscles are there, his whatever is there, and he also feels like if you do this for me, I can also do it back to you. That is the point, that's the point we're trying to emphasize, that we are building something dangerous. In an attempt, with good intention though, the intention was to make the children comply, live normally in the society, whatever, but we're also normalizing violence.
So are you saying that outrightly beating, spanking sometimes of children is totally wrong?
The reason I'm saying this is I want us to look at outcome. You see, as a person, most of the time I'm very careful with yes or no. Yes or no. Yes or no answers. But if you look at the point I'm making, in the sense that what are the outcomes in the interim and in the long run, we can all decide whether it is good to, especially talking about corporal punishment, inflicting pains just to be able to correct a misbehavior, physical, bodily pain, just to be able to correct a misbehavior. But we have seen that the results are quick and fast, but they are not sustainable. That's the point.
Oh, right.
They are not sustainable because we are making a lot of sacrifices just to make them comply. Well, for instance, if you look at education, I think if we have a better understanding of what education should do for a child, we might also begin to rethink the role of corporal punishment.
Wow. Okay, fine. Why, as much as we're not trying to demonize corporal punishment, we're just trying to look at the pros and the cons. But let's look at societies where corporal punishment is not really entertained. The children, they have not turned out better than ours. If we juxtapose these situations, what could really be wrong?
Yeah, that's very, very important, and I wish we look at it more critically.
Okay.
You see, the models are not necessarily the same. I will explain something. In the Western world, the departure is not only from corporal punishment or whatever.
Okay.
If you look at what I was trying to elucidate on in terms of discipline, many of them are missing out on that. They don't seem to have any standard again. You feel like doing something, then do it. That's not discipline. Now, if we now look at the people who have no, everything is relative. What is good to me may not be good to you. No standard. Okay, I feel like though I have the genitals for a male, but I just feel that I'm a female, and they say if you feel like that, you are that. You realize that where their departure from morality, from values, is the core of their problem, not necessarily because they don't use corporal punishment. This same set of people now tell children, in a way, promote the sense that there's no supreme being. Do you understand? They have a feeling, if it's good, then you go ahead.
There are no consequences.
There are no consequences. It's immediate gratification. These are the issues that are contrary to discipline. So if we now say that, okay, they are no longer giving corporal punishment, it's just one of the things. They've deviated from things that kept people on track in terms of discipline, in terms of moral development, in terms of holistic development. So definitely we cannot use them as alternative. Do you understand what I'm trying to drive at? Assuming the only departure is to say we are no longer using corporal punishments and we are seeing all of this misbehavior, then we can attribute that to lack of corporal punishment. But I am saying that holistically they've deviated from many standards that help people to live a normal life. So they cannot be the one that we now use as comparing this. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Look at them today. What's their value for families these days? What's their family value for anything? So if you bring up people under that kind of culture, and whether you use or don't use corporal punishment, things are already messed up. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
But let me still go back. My point of view is this: I am one of the proponents of corporal punishment, and I believe if it is administered in the right way, right dosage for the right offense, then it's going to be, just like you said, proactive, and it's not going to be reactive. How about that?
You see, I don't know whether you've observed it personally. It's very rare. One of the ways by which you can easily see corporal punishment is actually out of lack of control from the people who mete it out.
That is right.
Hardly do you see a person saying, you know this thing you have done, and I will deal with you for this, because of this, and that you are still sane and calm. Very rare. It's reactive, it's out of losing control. And that's why there are even some unintended, effects. The mother loves the child, fine, but just out of anger, just take the turning stick, bang it on the boy's head, take slippers, take anything.
A lot of us take that.
And unfortunately, we do not like them, but we are now, idealizing them, we're standardizing them, because we felt it helped us.
Okay.
So now it must be for everybody. But really, it may not necessarily be help.
Oh, right.
It was just that, well, along the line, maybe some other factors came in, we were just lucky. Some of our friends, some of our colleagues that went through such treatments also, they are somewhere else now, on the other side, which is not good. Look at children that so-called streets, parenting and all the like. Some of them, outcome of their life is either they resisted anything authority, and most of them are the ones that are taught today. There is an offense, a misbehavior, and you corrected it, and all the child could say was hatred because of the pains, and all, left the house. We will not say that it was corporal punishment that led to that. If we bring it to school, many students, there are some class keepers, there are some trance. Many of them, if you look at their trance or class keeping behavior, you will notice that it is usually tied to avoiding a particular teacher or the school setting, if it's for trance. But if for those who skip classes, they can be in school for all classes. But once it is mathematics time, you just go through the window, run away. Why? Because the man will say 2 plus 2, you say 2, and he starts beating you. Beating you like that, you say, well, it's like, I'm not good. So you just run away. Something I looked very close to it from me as a personal experience, I can't forget, was close to it, not absolutely like that, was one day, the teacher was teaching, he's a Ghanaian, was teaching me primary school. And he was doing this kind of word sum. He said, if you buy this and this, you remember those songs?
Yes.
So he said, so what do you do? Then I raised my hand, sure that I got the logic of what he was saying. And I said, we shall minus this one. He said, sit down. And I sat down. So he repeated the question again, and I still listened. I said, I'm right. Do you understand? So I still raised up my hand. He said, okay, you. And I said, we shall minus. Then he took chalk.
You said the same thing.
And threw the chalk at me. Pew, stupid boy, sit down. And I kept quiet, thinking that, well, it's like I'm not good for this kind of class. One girl now raised her hand and said, we shall subtract. I said, correct.
You said minus?
It was bad English for me.
Oh, then he should have corrected you.
It was the English he was correcting. I thought it was the logic. We're doing mathematics, arithmetic or whatever. So I just felt what he wanted. This thing, to get this, we shall minus.
But you still had the idea. It was just a presentation that was wrong.
Felt the school where they were teaching us the standard school, you should be sitting.
Then he should have corrected you.
You understand? So you now threw chalk at me.
So good.
I can't remember what I spoke in his class again.
And for you to still be able to remember that,
remember vividly.
It must have, in a way,
That was the kind of trauma, really.
Vividly. What was in each throwing of chalk at me is punishment. He did it not as a proactive measure. He was just angry with me, and he lost control. Then he threw chalk. Most of the beating, slapping, all those things we do, even caning and other things, were just because the people meeting them out were losing their control. And once they're losing their control, they are also they were modeling lack of self-regulation, lack of emotional regulation, and it becomes a norm. You see, when we see the deviant behavior, when we see the aggression in our society, sometimes we cannot really trace them to the resource. These are the places where they are coming from. These are the places where they might have it, and that kind of thinking. So that is from the angle where we're saying corporal punishment, we should tread. Of course, I can be talking about, I don't want to make attempt too much, talking about all these maybe human rights, right. We call it human rights now.
Human rights.
A child has the right to dignity, to physical integrity, and all of those ones. How can you talk about human dignity, physical integrity, and you cause pain, you inflict pain on a child because for whatever reason, the misbehavior could be like I was speaking bad English. Do you understand?
Yes.
The misbehavior could be a child trying to bully another child. So for me to checkmate bullying, I'll also use force. So the child has the impression that, well, you are powerful than me, you have used it against me, I'll use it again. So next time again, it's just I just need to acquire more force. And we normalize what should not be. That's the area of concern, I know.
Now, as discipline being proactive, let's look at some alternative discipline methods that people can adopt. Child caregivers can adopt, teachers can adopt, even parents can, instead of punishment.
Good. I know at this point, someone is say, okay, yeah. You won't be able to say anything. It looks like, okay, yes, you are saying this one is bad. And this one is working for us. Now, bring out the alternative. You see, there are a lot of alternatives.
Okay.
Wow, absolutely. Now, let me start by saying that if we pay more attention to it, we can come with more. Do you understand? We can come with more. But I can also speak to those ones that are already being, identified.
All right.
But I also want to encourage that we should just get intentional with what we are doing and we're able to come up with more alternatives rather than just pick on the ones that are readily available, easy go, just always a slap and go on. We can think about one in what we call behavior modification, which is essentially what punishment is meant to do, is to say you inflict pain, you bring something negative and it causes pain, so the person will reduce their behavior. What about strengthening positive, desirable behavior? Do you understand?
How do we do that?
That's what I'm saying now. If this is something they call reinforce. When you want to reinforce something, it's about strengthening it.
Yes.
There are ways we can strengthen positive behavior. What did we do when we're trying to decrease misbehavior, the so-called abnormal behavior? Once you see the behavior, you come up with what? Punishment. You introduce something negative. What about when you see something good? You also appreciate it. You compliment it.
Carrot and stick approach?
No, not necessarily like carrots. I don't think I get the carrot and stick. But you see what I'm saying is that if, for instance, a child does something right, you celebrate it.
Okay. Like positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement, that is it. You celebrate it in such a way that the child sees that this is desired.
Right.
Do you understand?
No.
For instance, you do one thing, if you do anything now, and you say that in this office, that is appreciated, no matter your level, age-wise, you want to repeat it.
Yes.
So why don't you bring that into education? If, using the example that happened to me, when I gave something logical, something that sounded like language of mathematics, but my English was bad. What if that person said, good thinking?
I said that.
Good thinking. But
you put it this way.
But you see, by the time you emphasize good thinking, I'll feel honored among my colleagues. Rather than someone say, you're stupid. Keep quiet, stupid boy. So if that's which it's not the whole of the behavior, the whole of the desired behavior is a bit of it, there will never be that you will not see at least an element of what is correct in that behavior. So that's one that is correct, appreciate it. Then increase the standard. That is positive reinforcement. There are times that you want to, a child does what is wrong. You can remove something that is desired. Or for instance, a child says, it's okay, once you are doing this, you will not watch cartoon for the next 1 week. Have you inflicted any pain? But he has emitted a behavior you are not pleased with. So because of this, give me your iPad, give me your this. For the next 1 week, you will not. The child wants that. So he puts in effort to modify that behavior because that's the behavior that is causing trouble for him. Do you understand what I'm trying to do? But the other part of it I'm trying to say, sometimes clearly clearly ignoring misbehavior can also be another way of reducing that behavior. Yes, you know, sometimes
Ignoring it.
Yes, completely ignoring it.
How do you do that?
That's what I'm saying. Completely acting as it. If the behavior is such that it's not, fatalistic, you understand? It doesn't have serious consequences.
Okay.
I mean, you can allow the child to discover the natural consequence of that behavior.
Can you give an example of such a misbehavior?
I can understand that.
An example of such a misbehavior.
Yeah, because
because every misbehavior, it should be corrected.
There are times I've seen parents
I'll come to
such
that, okay.
misbehavior is like a toddler and fire. You know, sometimes when I'll tell you Jojo and they draw you back, when the toddler insists, they let him walk. The child knows what fire is.
Yeah, you absolutely get what I'm talking about. You see, most of the time, because we want quick results, we prevent learning.
And that is where I'm going now. If we have to think of discipline, it doesn't make punishment spontaneous. It doesn't make our reaction spontaneous. And that is the essence of discipline, spontaneity.
Yeah, right.
So we're taking that away from the equation. If a child does something and I need to be sober and pensive to met out what is desired.
Ignoring.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how do you ignore a misbehavior to get that child to
You see,
do the
when you
right
look at
thing?
the example he gave me now, if a child touches fire, it has a consequence, natural consequence. If I see the child moving towards fire and I can come in and punish that child for that behavior, this desire to go towards fire, I can punish the child. I'll just bring him and spank him. Don't go there again. Don't go there again. Don't go there again. That is an attempt to discourage
Yes.
that movement towards fire, and I've used punishment. The other one is allowing the natural consequence to come. If I want to allow the natural consequence, I will refrain. I will act as if I do not see the child doing that. Of course, it's under controlled environment. Do you understand?
Yes.
So that I know that what's the consequence for him will be mild. So I allow him to experience it. Do you understand? So once it touches it, you see, in psychology, learning is not just giving instructions to people. Learning has been divided as a relatively permanent change in behavior as a result of experience. Most of the time, we provide interventions too early.
So sometimes you allow the child to experiment.
We allow them
see
to
the
experience it. Once they experience some things, of course, I have said, you know, the principle of what do we call this now? Immunization. You know, the principle behind it is that the same thing they want to immunize a person against is what is put into the body in a sublethal way. The quantity is such that it cannot harm the child, but it's enough to be able to produce immunity in the child against that thing. That is the concept I was trying to emphasize, that sometimes parents, caregivers, teachers should allow some things to evolve naturally. If you come around and beat the child, say, don't go towards that fire again, the child sees you as there's something there that you don't want me to see. He does not like what you have done, but his curiosity has not yet been satisfied. So his behavior may not be sustainably changed. But if you just give a natural consequence, let him face it. And once he faces that, it comes around and say he is withdrawn. This can also be extended to many things. Why do I beat a child? Sometimes I expect a child to greet adults. That's a lofty behavior. The child sees adults and does not greet. All of a sudden, I give a slap, I give a slap, I give a slap, I give a slap. Do you understand? Because most of the time, I don't want to be embarrassed. It's not necessarily about the child. It's just that I don't want my child to look like a spoiled child because I did not teach her. And in the real sense of it, maybe I've not taught her. There have never been any specified instructions on how do you relate, what's the essence of, greeting adult people you meet, whether adults or something. There is no instruction on that. All I just want to quickly do is come in and say, stop that, don't do that, don't do that. And sometimes inconsistently, because I say this and we do another thing, so the children are really living. What if I want to provide discipline? The discipline I'm giving to the children, I'm bound by it. There was a day in one as this if you are coming out of UI towards Ajibode, the road is relatively bad. So instead of driving round the roundabout, I was thinking, this one is not good. I was about going, and my children said, no.
You're driving again.
No. I said the road is actually bad. He said, notwithstanding, it's still bad. Just yesterday, an elderly person was with us in the car, and I think she threw something out, and they said, no. And he said, hey, don't worry. He said, the younger one said, what if you are arrested now? I will just get there and I say, I don't know you. And the other one said,
I'll find his way home himself.
And they were talking about, and at a point, their insistence was also getting rude, because the elderly person was insisting that I treat it.
There was nothing to it.
There's no consequence. So they were not insisting. But at a point, I felt the insistence was also getting rude. Okay. I said, it's enough. Your point is made. Do you understand? So if you have given instructions to children, even when there's nothing to react about, it's a proactive measure. You've done it consistently. You have time out with children. Let me say time in. It's one of the principles also practiced.
All right.
You have time in. At that time in, that's the time you come in to put a child through on basic behavioral issues. This should be this should be this. And of course also be consequent. One of the this is time out. The child still wants to do something, he said no. As simple as talking about waking up time, sleeping time, television watching, these are disciplines. Do you understand what I'm saying? Disciplines that will model positive behavior and bring about the holistic development of a child. But if I just wait for a child that does not, it doesn't have a sleeping time, doesn't have a waking time, is no time for television, no time, everything is just anyhow. So if it is natural for that child to be misbehaving, so if at that point I now quickly want to correct that, I will have to correct a lot. But it's important that even when there are no issues, I provide guidance, I provide instructions, I teach and I model them. And that's what the problem is. We seem not to be able to model the behavior we want in children. It's difficult for us, but because for us nobody will beat us, because nobody will use.
We are adults, so we can get away with anything.
Let me give one illustration to illustrate that we can use some other methods apart from punishments. Do you know that sometimes a child misbehaves and the mother will beat the child, slap and do whatever? That same behavior of the child, the husband does it, and the woman will look away.
You will she beat her husband? Well, Doctor, I need a break now to bring the news at 11. But just on your talk there, a father doing the wrong thing, exactly the misbehavior, exhibiting the misbehavior the child is punished for. We'll talk about that when we come back after the break. It's still Breakfast Fiesta on Oluyole 98.5 FM. Stay with us.
ohun èlò tuntun kan ti wà fún sísè àwọn oúnjẹ aládùn. ṣé lóòótọ́? bẹ́ẹ̀ ni Tasty chicken flavour ni o tí wọ́n ṣe pẹ̀lú àwọn èròjà àbáláyé láti sọ gbogbo oúnjẹ tá a ṣe ìdàjẹ́ pọ́nnu lá. bẹ́ẹ̀ ni Tasty chicken flavour á fàdùn ara máa ń da sóúnjẹ. mo ti gba ti Tasty chicken flavour lẹ́sẹ̀kẹsẹ̀. tó bá jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ má jáfara o sáré lọ ra Tasty chicken flavour tiẹ̀ lónìí láti máa jẹ̀gbádùn oúnjẹ àjẹpọ́nnu lá. Tasty Cubes chicken flavour ó ń fún wa lóúnjẹ tó gbádùn.
gba Ramadan sórí 091-582-13807 091-582-13807.
ilé akéde sálàwá ń wò lórí tábà sọ̀rọ̀. ilé akéde sálàwá ń wò lórí tábà sọ̀rọ̀.
Prime time. For those of you who do not know, you are listening to
98.5
Oluyole FM. Let's go.
It's 11 o'clock.
The news.
Good morning. The news on the hour. Nigerian Air Force has dismissed allegations that its airstrikes on terrorist hideouts, including areas linked to notorious bandit leader Bello Turji, resulted in civilian deaths in Zamfara State. Reports suggested 16 vigilantes were killed during operations targeting bandits in Tunga Kara, Maradun local government area. A counter-security expert, Zagazola Makama, claimed in an earlier report that members of the Zamfara Community Protection Guard, ZCPG, were among those killed. However, the Nigeria Air Force spokesperson, Air Vice Marshal Akiboyewa, refuted the claim, stating that the precaution was taken to prevent harm to civilians during the operation, adding that the reports may be propaganda from terrorists seeking to undermine the military's success. Meanwhile, Zamfara State Governor Dauda Lawal commended the Nigeria Air Force's renewed efforts against banditry. Oyo State Governor Engineer Seyi Makinde has presented the staff and instruments of office to the new Alaafin of Oyo, Oba Abimbola Akeem Owade. The governor presented the staff of office to the new monarch during a special event held at the Exco Chambers of the governor's office, Secretariat Agodi Ibadan. Among the attendees of the event were the Deputy Governor of Oyo State, Barrister Baya Lawal, former Speaker of the Oyo State House of Assembly, Senator Monsurat Sowolu, some high chiefs from Oyo Town, religious leaders, the Awishe Awo Agbaye, Professor Wande Abimbola, the Revered Ifa custodian who performed Ifa divination for the selection of the new Alaafin, among other distinguished guests. And that ends the news on the hour. Thank you for listening. Good morning.
ẹ káàárọ̀ ìròyìn ní ṣókí iléeṣẹ́ ọmọ ogun ojú òfurufú nílẹ̀ yìí ti sẹ́ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ tó ń jà rìnrìn ńlẹ̀ pé ọ̀pọ̀ àwọn aráàlú ló pàdánù ẹ̀mí wọn lásìkò tí àwọn ọmọ ológun náà lọ yabo ibùba ikọ̀ agbésùmọ̀mí tí Bello Turji jẹ́ aṣáájú wọn. Ìròyìn sọ pé àwọn ikọ̀ ojúlànà kan fi ń ṣọ́rí mẹ́rìndínlógún ló pàdánù ẹ̀mí wọn lásìkò tí àwọn ọmọ ológun ojú òfurufú náà fojú ìkọlù yìí sun àwọn agbébọn yìí ní Tuga Kara ní ìjọba ìbílẹ̀ Maradun ní ìpínlẹ̀ Zamfara. Ìròyìn ọ̀hún fi kún wípé ikọ̀ aláàbò ìpínlẹ̀ ti Zamfara Zagazola Makama náà wà lára àwọn èèyàn tó bá ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ náà rìn. Agbẹnusọ fún ikọ̀ ọmọ ogun ojú òfurufú Akínbóyèwá ní kò sí òótọ́ nínú ìròyìn yìí o nítorí pé wọ́n ṣètò ààbò tó péye fún àwọn aráàlú lásìkò tí wọ́n fi ń ṣe iṣẹ́ yìí, láfikún wípé ó ṣeéṣe kó jẹ́ wípé àwọn agbésùmọ̀mí ló wà nídìí ìròyìn tí kìí ṣe òótọ́ náà láti lè tàbùkù àṣeyọrí tí àwọn ọmọ ológun náà ti ṣe. Gómìnà gómìnà ìpínlẹ̀ ọ̀yọ́ onímọ̀ ẹ̀rọ ṣèyí mákindé ti gbé ọ̀pá àṣẹ fún aláàfin tuntun fún ìlú ọ̀yọ́ ọba abímbọ́lá akeem ọ̀wádé. Gómìnà gbé ọ̀pá àṣẹ fún orí adé náà ní yàrá ìgbìmọ̀ aláṣẹ tó wà ní ọ́fíìsì gómìnà Agodi lọ́gbà secretariat nílùú Ìbàdàn láàárọ̀ òní. Lára àwọn èèkàn tó péjú síbi ètò yìí láti rí igbákejì gómìnà ìpínlẹ̀ ọ̀yọ́ amòfin Báyọ̀ Lawal, olórí ilé aṣòfin ìpínlẹ̀ yìí nígbà kan rí sẹ́nitọ̀ Monsura Sumonu, àwọn àgbà oyè kan láti ìlú ọ̀yọ́, àwọn aṣáájú ẹ̀sìn, àwíṣe awọ àgbáyé tó dá ifá tó mú orí adé náà ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n Wándé Abímbọ́lá, àwọn aṣáájú ẹ̀sìn ifá tó darí ayẹyẹ gbígbọ́ ọ̀pá àṣẹ náà àti àwọn èèyàn mìíràn. A rántí wípé lọ́jọ́ ẹtì ọ̀sẹ̀ tó kọjá ni gómìnà kéde ọba Abímbọ́lá Akeem Ọ̀wádé gẹ́gẹ́ bí aláàfin tuntun fún ìlú ọ̀yọ́. Èyí lópin ìròyìn ní ṣókí wa fún ti wákàtí yìí, ẹ máa yáṣẹ́.
Prime time. For those of you who do not know, you are listening to
98.5
Oluyole FM. Let's go.
You are welcome back to Breakfast Fiesta on Oluyole 98.5 FM Ibadan, where we have been looking at child education and corporal punishment with our guest, Dr. Temitope Adeleye. Anthony, you're still here, sir. And thank you for still being there to your at home too. So before we went on that break, you talked about modeling as one of the alternative discipline methods we can adopt.
Yes.
Instead of corporal punishment. And there was a particular case you mentioned, or instance before that break, trying to a parent exhibiting a misbehavior you are trying to correct in a child. What do you do? That's specific case. A father exhibiting a misbehavior, a mother is correcting a child. You be the child, what do you do with the father?
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to emphasize. You see, some of these things, on the superficial, consideration, they look as if they're normal, but they're actually dangerous for us as a community of people. If a child does what is wrong, a misbehavior, and I inflict pain or I punish that child, the essence is to decrease that behavior. Now, the child now sees the father doing the same thing, and the mother that punished that child overlooked it. The message being sent to that child is that this behavior is not really bad. It's just a matter of power play, perception of power. The reason why I was being punished is because my mother is superior to me in power, and that's why she did that to me. But when that same behavior is taking place, but my father is superior to my mother, no problem.
She does nothing.
So the child now modifies it, that whenever he wants to do something that is wrong, he looks at the perception of power. These people, are they above me or beneath me? If I have, my perception of power is better than theirs, then I'll continue to do that same thing. What I'm trying to emphasize is that corporal punishment most of the time is grossly ineffective in checking root causes of misbehavior. It can make you more smarter. It can make you just in the interim, and that's why I talk about sustainable. If we want sustainable changes, we want sustainable development in children, we should look beyond being reactive. We should help the children to see what is, and one of the reasons why it's difficult is because many of us were not helped, so to say, and we have not helped ourselves. We don't have a capacity to model such behavior of what is right. And so I would do it. I went to see a friend one day, it's been a long time. She offered me drink. I said, no, I can't take much. She persisted I should take that. She will help me if I did not finish it, just to encourage me. So I said, okay, fine. Then I said, just put a little in the cup for me. Now, the children were in the dining, sitting down. She was with me in the living room. And she now backed the children to drink what's the
remaining contents.
She drank it.
The cup.
One of the boys just shouted, Mom, if it is us, you'll be beating us. And you are drinking from a stranger. The mother now said, no, Uncle Papa is not a stranger. Uncle Papa is not a stranger. He said, but if it is me, you beat us. You beat us. She struggled. She had the impression that she was not just taking from a stranger. But the instruction for the children had always been, don't take from strangers. Now, without any whatever, they see you taking from someone who was not part of that household. She did well. She tried to struggle to explain. Some just say, keep short. You are too loud, too forward. Do you understand? And the boy will say, okay, this thing is essentially not actually bad. Do you understand? It's just because mommy does not want us to have pleasure. And that's why it's preventing us.
Talk about double standard.
Double standard. And so that's why I'm saying the reason why there is preponderance of corporal punishment and all of this thing is, one, it's cheap. Two, it's rooted in a cultural practice which can also be linked to what we describe as double standard. If everybody will come to terms and say this is standard behavior, that means I'm holding my children up to it, I'll live by it. Most people cannot do it. And because most people cannot do it, they resort to the cheap one. Keep your mouth shut, slap the boy, and go ahead. So it is cheap. Look at schools. And I wish we look at most of the people that support corporal punishment in school is because we don't really understand the complexity of what is going on. Many teachers in schools today are frustrated. I mean, they are not in teaching for the love of it. It's because there's nothing else to do. So they are in school. Somebody read engineering, could not practice, is teaching, and is receiving a paltry sum, I don't know, kind of thing, and it's bitter. Feeling that my mates are here, my mates are there, so he's already an wounded lion, sort of. Any misbehavior from the child, it's just to transfer aggression. So that person, say, why are you beating the children? Say, I want to model their life. I'm securing their future. What kind of future are you securing for them? You are just transferring aggression on them. You are meting out your frustration on them. So because it's cheap, everybody is involved. Nobody is clear-minded. Sorry, most people are not clear-minded on the issue of what do I want from these children? What are the inputs I'm making to ensure that they follow this line? So that even if there's a deviation, for you, you can see the deviation, the children can also see the deviation. But if it is something random, you're hungry, you beat, let's put it to a poll. Most people that get involved with corporal punishment, let somebody come around and say, when I was meting out this punishment, I was sane, I was clear-minded, I was sober. Most of us, no. We bring out this punishment when we are losing our cool, when we are hungry, when we cannot control our emotions.
We feel frustrated.
Yeah, there's this spontaneity in it.
Yeah, it does come. That's why I say it's reactive.
All right,
Okay.
let's quickly look at some of the long-term effects, short and long-term effects of corporal punishment on the children.
The first obvious one would be the physical harms. I mean, teachers, parents beat children and you can see bruises on them. I mean, you can see that. That one is the first physical thing, and it's on the surface. But beyond that, you see what it takes to do well in academics and in life. Number one of them is confidence. Apart from abilities, what you are gifted at, your genes you receive from your parents, there are very brilliant or intelligent students who may not really do well in school. What is the problem? Along the line, some people have come to destroy the confidence in them. And this confidence, how do you destroy them? Just with some of these, punishments, corporal punishment, and the child is no longer confident to be able to talk. For you to have holistic education, you need confidence, curiosity, character, and all of these things are to form together. But when somebody now comes to a school system that coming to school is filled with anxiety, coming to school is with full fear, you realize that any learning, of course somebody can say it's also motivation, but every fear-based motivation is not sustainable. It's not something that will last. But if people come to school, we have seen cases where a student has been termed, timid, slow learner, until there's another teacher that comes to that school. And that teacher engages the child. And the child starts coming out, flourishing and doing well. So if you meet up punishments, I don't know, many of us can talk about people who failed mathematics in secondary school and they attribute it to the teacher. The teacher does come around, the subject is relatively abstract and the man is also coming with cane. Is the cane to motivate them or what? So the first consequence, physical consequences, then we have the psychological consequence. Psychological, students get depressed. There's anxiety. There are all manners of mental health challenges that students go through, all because somebody has chosen to be the masquerade in the school and they find it very convenient just to beat. It was funny one time somebody was presenting a thesis, his research work, and they said, and they were talking, he teaches mathematics, and he was saying, these students, if you don't use skill, I mean, everybody was shocked. In our department, you are presenting a seminar, and you are saying, you are a mathematics teacher, and if you don't beat, students cannot learn. I mean, it's so no follow-up to even see whether what you did is producing